Hey BookTube, this is Friday Reads. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and I have about 6 books to tell you about this week. Oddly, half of them are print books, which I found interesting since, you know me, I'm like the audiobook queen. So I'm going to start with the ones I like the least and work towards the ones I like the best. So I picked up Lucky Number 4. This is by Amanda Jason. I've had this on my shelf forever, and I'm really making this concerted effort to go through my books and read them. And this, 1 star. No, just no. New adult contemporary, highly implausible and believable and a little ridiculous. Not great writing. I mean, just, it was kind of a disaster all the way around. So yeah, that's a shame because, you know, I was really drawn in by the cover. I got this a while ago, like 3-4 years ago, and it's signed. Got it at a convention, but oh well. Nope, that one just didn't do it for me. Then I picked up The Anatomical Shape of a Heart by Jenn Bennett. This is not available on audio, so I read this actual book, and this wasn't what I expected. I thought this was going to be about graffiti artists in a big city, and it does take place in San Francisco, but it's about a girl who does medical like drawings that are anatomically correct. So she wants to get an art scholarship and then become an artist who is hired by like a publishing company that would do medical textbooks, and she wants to do the drawings. It's a highly competitive field apparently, and so she's trying to win a scholarship. So she's on the bus home one night and she meets this guy. He's dressed in all black, but he catches her eye and she catches his eye, and turns out he's got a can of paint in his backpack. So she realizes that he's probably the guy who's been doing the graffiti that's been happening and is very high profile in the news in San Francisco. And it's just words. It's like one word. But she realizes it's him, and then there is a romance that happens. The book briefly touches on schizophrenia. There is a character who does not have paranoid schizophrenia, but she has just schizophrenia and is being treated for it. So you kind of get an impression of what that is about, but you really don't get a lot of detail into the disease. So that was interesting. It made it a little bit interesting. It took me until about halfway through the book before the whole thing grabbed me, before I was interested enough to keep continuing with the story. It had a slow start. But beyond that, I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was pretty decent and pretty good for a YA contemporary. I finished up Graudin, which is book 3 in the Heart of Dread series by Michael Johnston and Melissa de la Cruz. Books 1 and 2 are on audio, and sadly, this 3rd book is not. Really annoys me when publishers do that, but this book was good. It was an excellent finish to the series. But it would have been even better if it had been narrated on audio by Phoebe Stroll and Dan Bittner, who did the first 2 books. Sadly, this wasn't the case, and I think I would have gotten into it much more had I listened to it rather than read it. It was good in print. There was a lot of action, and this is an odd combination. In this world, there's the regular world, which is a dystopian world that's all frozen and it's decaying, but it's like a near future. Well, no, it's not near future. It's like, I don't know, 1,000 years in the future, something like that. And then existing right alongside this world is a world where there is magic, and it's beautiful, and there are sylphs that ride winged horses and carry swords, and, you know, queens and magic, and these 2 worlds exist side by side, and the world that's decaying wants to take over the other world, and so there's a portal that's open. And this is what got me. The tanks and the soldiers come rolling in and shooting these magical creatures with bullets, and that just was like, okay, my brain can't do this. It was too weird. And of course, our special snowflake has to save the world, and so ultimately, I think it had a lot of action. It had some interesting characters. It had a lot of sacrifice and grief because it was war and people die in war. So really interesting conclusion. I thought, it was just interesting the way it played out with regard to the magic. And so I ended up giving it 4 stars because I think that based on the strength of the series, it was good enough to have 4 stars. Just a solid 4 stars. Maybe like a 3.75 rounded up. But boy, I would have liked it so much better on audio. So, oh well. Then I finished up Invictus. This is by Ryan Graudin, and it is narrated on audio by Maxwell Hamilton. I got this copy from my friend Karen for Christmas. And so I would say that the audiobook, Maxwell Hamilton was okay. He was, I don't know, some of the times that he would phrase things, they didn't resonate with me. I just thought there are guys that would have done this better, you know, that would have been better narrators. And I could even think of a few. But, you know, he was average. He was okay, but he wasn't great. So that was, I don't know, probably colored my opinion of the book somewhat. But this is a great story. I thought this was going to be, I don't know, maybe it's because of the cover. I thought it was going to be really like YA kind of fantasy, but really hard-edged, you know, and with tough characters and that kind of thing. This isn't what it is at all. It is YA, but it's about time travel, and it's about a guy who's born out of time. Like, he's born on the ship as it's going from, like, what is it, 95 AD to, like, 20-something AD, when his mother is from then. So he grows up wanting to be a time traveler, and he flunks his final exam, but not through any fault of his own. He's like, but I was set up, and they're like, yeah, right. So there's kind of a covert group that pulls him aside. Actually, he's like a mob boss. Pulls him aside and says, I want you to be a smuggler for me, and if you don't say yes, it's not going to go well for you. So he doesn't really leave him much choice, and so he does. He becomes a smuggler. Basically, what they do is they go into various time periods and they steal things from the time period that no one would miss, and then they bring them back. Like, for example, peanut butter and jelly, or wine, or I don't know, coins. You know, it's stuff like that that really, it will make very little difference in the timeline if it's not there, but they can have it in the future. So it becomes the story of him and his crew, which is very Firefly-esque, and they meet a girl, and so she is very mysterious, and then they find out some big bad thing is happening, and so they have to make it stop. This is a standalone, which is such a pleasure because there aren't 50 more books coming, and I loved it. I really did. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I picked up Heart to Heart, which is book 2 in the Hart series by M.E. Carter, and it is narrated on audio by Zachary Weber. I love Zachary Weber. I'm always singing the praises of Zachary Weber because he's fantastic. He just is. He acts. He does not narrate. The man acts when he narrates. I mean, he's a voice actor. And I love that. I love that. I'm always right there. I get completely disassociated from reality when I'm listening, and I'm completely in the world that is the story. And so that was the case with this book. This book is about a football player who marries a woman who has a son. And in the first book, it's the story of their romance. This guy is a defensive player, or maybe he's a tight end or something like that, but he's on the line. So he's a big guy, you know, like, not like, oh, quarterback that's cut, you know. This guy is like a big brick. And so it starts off with their wedding because the romance came in the book before. And so this one continues on, and some stuff happens that they have to get through as a family, and it's hard. And so the book becomes all about dealing with a sick child and all of the stress that that causes, all of the things that they run into in terms of kind of like other people who are in this position but can't handle it as well as they can because they don't they're not financially able to cope with it, and other things like that. So it's kind of a big long story of that, of them surviving this big bad thing. So I don't know, I didn't like it nearly as well as I liked the first one, but it was still good. I gave it 3 stars. I think Zachary Weber alone made it good. It's adult contemporary, but I don't know, it was okay, but it was not what I was expecting. So yeah, 3 stars. And lastly, I picked up The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. This is by Mariana Zapata, and it is narrated on audio by Callie Dalton. Callie Dalton is fantastic. She's one of my favorite female narrators, and I think it's because I just like the sound of her voice, and the way she enunciates words is very pleasant to me. Her voices for the men were pretty much the same, one to the next, but that was okay. I didn't mind. And I loved the story so much, and I loved her narration so much that it didn't make any difference. So my friend Lisa was listening to this, and so I decided I would listen to it with her. So this book is all about Aiden, who is the Wall of Winnipeg, and he is a football player for the fictional 300, which is basically the Dallas Cowboys. And he's a lineman, like he's on the defensive line, I think, and so he's the one that goes for the quarterback. Great big guy. Well, it's told from his assistant Vanessa's perspective. Vanessa was hired to work for him, and so she is his personal assistant, which means she does things like handles his social media accounts, schedules appearances, does his laundry, fixes him lunch, all kinds of things. And so she has worked for him for 2 years, and he is so focused on football that he has no idea that there is a world beyond him and football. He doesn't even treat Vanessa like a person. She's just this person in his life that gets things done. She has no identity. So finally, she says she's going to quit. She's a graphic artist who is doing things on the side, so she kind of has a business sort of starting, and she really wants to just do that and stop putting up with this guy that is so self-centered. And so she quits. And he comes back to her about 2 weeks later and says, "You have to come back." And she says, "No." And he says, "You have to come back." It's like she isn't even talking. "You have to come back, but I need you. You have to come back." And she's like, "Get somebody else. I don't want to do that anymore. You don't even talk to me. Like you have no idea that there is a person there. No, I don't want to do that." And he just doesn't hear her. He just keeps saying, "But I need you, so you need to come back." And so we go from there. And obviously it's a romance book, so it's going to be between them. But just the way that Mariana Zapata works the whole thing out, there's a lot more going on. There are things in each of their backgrounds that are things they have to deal with. And the thing that impressed me about the character of Vanessa was how willing she was to put up with stuff in the name of, I don't want to spend the energy that it's going to take to get upset about this. I liked that. And the character progression of Aiden was amazing. Last time I read this, I gave it 4 stars. And this time I gave it 5 because I just loved it that much. So I would highly recommend that one. Currently, I am listening to This Mortal Coil. This is by Emily Suvada, and it is narrated on audio by Skye Bennett. I like it a lot. I picked it up because Aoife at Fred Weasley Died Laughing, she reviewed it, and she said it was amazing. And it's kind of post-apocalyptic and hard to describe. I will tell you that Skye Bennett is bugging me. I think I would like this book a lot better if someone else had narrated it. I have it sped up to 1.5 the speed, but I think if I would slow it down, her voice would have less of an edge to it. But I still think she makes the main character just sound angry all the time. And I don't think the main character is angry all the time. I think she doesn't have really a softer side, and she's very businesslike at times, very direct. But overall, I think Skye Bennett is not doing it right. Because I'm such an expert. Another thing that I've noticed, and I had to look this up, she's British. And so I think this is, well, it's obviously set in the US because there are a lot of US terms. And the thing is, Skye Bennett is saying things like vaccine instead of vaccine. You know, it's like little words here and there that pull me out of the story because I think that is not how you pronounce that. So, yeah, those are minor things. The story is all about biological warfare and a plague that gets released and the search for a vaccine and a cure. And in this world, everybody has like a panel in their arm and they load apps into it like we would onto our phones. But the thing in their arm is attached to their nervous system, and so they can change things about themselves genetically by manipulating them with these apps. And so the main character is a master coder in such a way that it pertains to genetics. She is the daughter of a guy who came up with this amazing stuff, and now he's dead, and now she has to find the vaccine. And so there's a soldier that her dad sends to her to help her figure this out right before he dies. And so it's interesting. It's probably, I have about an hour and a half before I'm finished, so I'm getting pretty close to the end. Interesting story. I don't love this main character, I gotta tell you. I'm not really wild about her, but I have a feeling it's got a lot to do with the narrator, so I'll leave it at that. I'm also reading Brightly Woven. This is by Alexandra Bracken, who also wrote The Darkest Minds. This is not available on audio, and it's not even in print anymore. I found this in Arizona last year when I was there, and she's from Arizona, which is probably why I found it. So it's YA fantasy, and it's going to take me a while to get through it, I think, but I love the way Alexandra Bracken can develop characters. I think she is an expert at that. So already it has grabbed me, even though I'm only, gosh, on page 23. Still, she has an amazing way with characters. So that's my week and my weekend, and I would love to know what you're reading. And also, if you've read any of these books, I would love to know what you thought of them. So let me know. Let's talk about all of that stuff in comments. And so that's it for now for me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.